Hi everyone, I'm Ava, and welcome back to Your Financial Journey. As you probably know by now, I love finance. But apparently not everyone does, and not that many people in the financial world can claim to be household names. But if there's one person who can, it's certainly Jamie Dimon, the longtime chairman and CEO of JPMorgan Chase. Dimon is known for guiding his bank successfully to the top of the international world of finance, as well as for his outspoken opinion on all events affecting the markets. Under Dimon's leadership, JPMorgan Chase has thrived as the world's largest bank, even expanding during the 2008 financial crisis when other banks were struggling or even going bankrupt. No wonder he's been in charge for nearly 20 years now. But Dimon didn't start right at the top, because from being fired by his one-time mentor to becoming one of the most powerful figures in global finance, Jamie Dimon's story is anything but ordinary. That's why in this video, we'll be talking about Jamie Dimon's eventful career and how he eventually rose to prominence. Specifically, we'll go into his early life and education, his long career in business, and his time as the CEO of JPMorgan Chase. Let's get started. Dimon's early life and education. Jamie Dimon was born on March 13, 1956 in New York City. Even then, his family had strong ties to finance, with both his father and grandfather working as stockbrokers. You could say that finance ran in his blood. Dimon grew up in Queens, and for his early education, he attended the Browning School, a prestigious boys' private school on Manhattan's Upper East Side. That, fun fact, many Rockefellers attended too. But back to Dimon. For college, Dimon headed to Tufts University, where he majored in psychology and economics. Even then, Dimon was already taking steps in the financial world. While at Tufts, he wrote a paper about the history and mergers of Shearson, which was the well-known investment and brokerage firm his father and grandfather worked at. And you could say that this paper changed Dimon's life, because his mother sent it to Sandy Weill, then the CEO of Shearson and another titan of American finance, who was impressed and hired Dimon to work at Shearson during a summer break. And that summer job would turn out to be the first step up Dimon's steep career ladder. Dimon was later accepted at Harvard Business School, and while attending, he got another notable summer job at Goldman Sachs. After his graduation, he received a job offer there, as well as at other big banks like Morgan Stanley and Lehman Brothers. Things already seemed to be going well. But then Dimon made a courageous decision when he got a letter from Sandy Weill, who offered him a job at American Express after graduation. Even though American Express was less prestigious and paid worse than the offers from the top firms, Dimon took the offer and joined Weill in 1982. And with that, his journey into high finance really set off. Career in business. After joining American Express as Sandy Weill's assistant, Dimon quickly proved he was more than just another Harvard graduate. He was sharp, driven, and unafraid to speak his mind, even to senior executives. And that fearlessness would become a hallmark of his career. In 1985, Dimon followed Weill out of American Express to take over Commercial Credit, a Baltimore-based consumer finance company that Weill had acquired from Control Data, which was a major computer company at the time. At just 30 years old, Dimon was named the Chief Financial Officer, or CFO, and from that position, he helped turn Commercial Credit around. Dimon wasn't just a numbers guy, but a hands-on operator. He was known for digging into the details of everything, from human resources to tech infrastructure. And by the early 1990s, he was helping lead one of the most ambitious financial roll-ups in history. He and Weill had launched an aggressive acquisition spree, buying up a mix of financial institutions to build what would later become known as Travelers Group. In 1998, Travelers merged with Citicorp to form Citigroup, a financial behemoth with global reach and for a while, the largest bank in the world. Dimon was just 42, much younger than many of his colleagues, but he was widely expected to eventually follow Weil as the CEO of Citigroup. But that's not quite how things worked out. In a dramatic twist, like right out of an ancient Greek tragedy, Weil, who'd been Dimon's mentor for over a decade, suddenly asked him to leave the company in late 1998. Was it because of disagreements the two had about succession planning and the company's internal politics? Some accounts say that Weil didn't want to share power with Dimon as an equal, and Dimon wasn't willing to stay on in a lesser role. Be that as it may, losing his perpetuous position wasn't exactly fun for Dimon. In an interview decades later, he said he was taken by surprise when he was fired, because while there were a lot of telltale signs in retrospect, he didn't see them at the time. But although it was a big change, Dimon didn't let it stop him. Instead, he took a year off, spent some time with his family, figured out what kind of leader he wanted to be, and waited for the right moment. That right moment came in 2000, when he became CEO of Bank One. Bank One was the 6th largest bank in the US at the time, but it was struggling with profitability, technology, and culture. In fact, the year Dimon took over, Bank One reported a loss of over $500 million. So Dimon rolled up his sleeves and got to work again, just as he had done years before at Commercial Credit. He cut costs, overhauled the management, and invested heavily in tech infrastructure. Just 3 years later, Bank One was in much better shape and reported a record profit of $3.5 billion. That success didn't go unnoticed. It caught the attention of JPMorgan Chase, and in 2004, the company bought Bank One for $58 billion. The deal made Dimon the president and chief operating officer of the combined bank. But that wasn't all, because just 1 year later, Dimon was promoted to CEO of JPMorgan Chase. And that's the role that eventually propelled him to become one of the most powerful figures in finance. CEO of JPMorgan Chase. Once he was at the helm of one of the biggest banks in the US, Dimon had the power and platform to make bold moves. And he did just that, which, in this case, was enforcing stricter risk controls and keeping a tighter leash on his trading and investment banking departments than most banks were at the time. Because in the early 2000s, many banks were over-leveraged and drowning in subprime mortgage assets. They had too much money in assets that just weren't safe. That ultimately led to the global financial crisis in 2008, which was the worst financial crisis in decades. Borrowers couldn't pay back their debts, the global economy contracted, and many banks went bankrupt. But while many banks were struggling, JPMorgan Chase remained relatively stable precisely because Dimon had been skeptical of those products from the start. He famously said, "Just because we can do something doesn't mean we should." JPMorgan Chase didn't weather the financial crisis completely unscathed, though. It joined many other banks in taking billions from the government in a bailout, which was meant to prevent those banks from defaulting without singling any one of them out. To this day, Dimon has expressed annoyance at JPMorgan Chase being grouped in with the more struggling banks that were in dire need of government support. Still, JPMorgan Chase emerged from the great financial crisis stronger than it had been before. The bank acquired Bear Stearns and Washington Mutual, two moves that brought some additional risks, but also further expanded the bank's size and scope. It was all thanks to Dimon's leadership. And by 2011, the bank had become the largest in the world. But even for Dimon, not everything always went smoothly. Notably, in 2012, JPMorgan suffered the now infamous London whale loss, where despite all the extra controls that Dimon had put in place, a trader made risky derivatives bets that lost the bank over $6 billion. Dimon himself initially tried to downplay the issue, calling it a tempest in a teapot. But that didn't exactly age well when a week later, details about the true scale of the losses came out. As if that weren't bad enough, The loss also prompted a number of investigations from American and British regulators into the firm to examine its risk management and internal controls. JPMorgan ultimately had to pay fines worth $920 million. And for Dimon, his pay was cut in half that year, from $23 million to $11.5 million. While the London whale was a setback, it didn't destroy JPMorgan Chase or Dimon's career. Dimon himself wrote in a letter to shareholders shortly after the event that despite the setback, the incident had offered some important lessons too, such as asking questions instead of being complacent, and having sufficient controls and risk limits for activities. And to his credit, he took public responsibility, tightened internal risk protocols further, and moved forward. And JPMorgan Chase continued to grow and prosper under Dimon's leadership. Today, it's the largest bank in the US and a global powerhouse, with assets worth more than $4 trillion at the end of 2024. The bank has influence in every corner of finance, be it investment banking, consumer lending, or wealth management and payments. And Dimon himself is seen as a steady, pragmatic voice in a chaotic world of finance. Beyond being the CEO of JPMorgan Chase, which is already impressive enough in itself, he was a Class A board member of the Federal Reserve Bank of New York in 2008, and he currently sits on the executive committee of the Business Council, an influential organization of CEOs whose goal is to contribute to public discourse and governance that helps the common good. Jamie Dimon has also attracted attention for voicing his opinion on political issues that impact more than just finance, and he frequently testifies before Congress and advises U.S. presidents on the economy. He's been approached for political roles, rumored for Treasury Secretary, and even speculated as a potential presidential candidate, though he's always denied serious interest. We won't get into too much detail about Dimon's politics here, but those speculations show just how much impact he has. Jamie Dimon's successful career is truly a result of his leadership, vision, and resilience in the face of challenges. And while other Wall Street CEOs have been forced out or faded from the spotlight, his reputation only continues to grow. Because from being fired by his mentor to becoming the most respected banker of his generation, Dimon didn't just survive Wall Street. He shaped it. What do you think of Jamie Dimon's career? And what do you think he might do next? Make sure to leave a comment below to let us know. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, subscribe, and check out these videos here on Warren Buffett and Elon Musk if you want to learn more about their amazing financial journeys and how they build their massive fortunes. Thanks for watching, and see you again next time.